parenting talk show with host Dr. Amy Stober, licensed psychologist, and Ann Brown, parenting educator. Each week, Amy and Ann invite parents just like you into the studio and discuss the trials of parenting. It's not your mother's parenting advice. And now, here's the MotherLoad.
Hi, welcome to the MotherLoad. I'm Amy Stober.
And I'm Ann Brown. Today it's all about 3-year-olds. We have 3 moms of each have a 3-year-old, and we've invited them to come talk to us today, ask us questions that they have, and let's just get started. So, Felicia and Aaron and Daniil are all in a parenting class that I teach, and yesterday in class there was an incident, and I thought since we're here together, let's start. So, Felicia, you want to start by telling the incident? It's between Felicia's kid and Daniil's kid. So if it gets a little hot, just know we know what to do. That's right. We have them as far as possible from each other. Okay, so we'll first have Felicia's side of the story.
So I didn't see everything, but what I understand happened, I heard a big scream and a cry, and looked and saw that my son Jake was crying pretty hard, and the teacher was heading over there to help him feel better. And I saw Daniil get up and run over to her daughter, and somewhere along the line I heard she hit Jake with apparently a dump truck. Large dump truck.
Hey, wait, are you cool so far with how she's telling it? Okay, go ahead.
And so, you know, it was a tough situation because you know, Jake was feeling pretty sad about it, and I'm not sure what else other than, you know, hurt. And I know that Kennedy was trying to, I think, understand what happened. And you know, I wanted to bring up the question because I sort of wasn't sure what to do in the situation. I trust Daniil. I trust the teachers in the class. There was also my son who was crying, and there was a little scratch that...
Little?
Oh, wait, can we go to a photo? Did you bring a photo? Do you got it on your phone?
No. After we mopped up the blood, everything was okay.
Exhibit A.
Yeah. So, you know, I just wanted to kind of talk about it to figure out when these things happen, which they will, right? Kids are constantly figuring out how they're going to get the toy that they want or their space.
Right.
And I really just wanted to know, how do I help in that situation? Who do I tend to first? How do I partner with the other parent? You know, and if there are extenuating circumstances, how do I help not exacerbate the problem?
And you know, what makes it even stickier is that both of you were there. You know, there's something about trying to know what the right thing to say is in front of the parent of the perp or the parent of the victim, because then all eyes are on you. And so one of the things that I always say is I think not the first relationship, but one of the very first relationships that have to be dealt with is parent to parent. Because I think that sometimes we don't make the best decisions on what we say to our kids when we're worried that the other parent is watching us. And
well, let's back up even from that, which is these parents are being pretty transparent, right? And
well, we haven't heard from Daniil.
Well, Daniil so far actually has outed her kid that there was more damage done with the fire truck or the dump truck than not. But the other thing is, often our first thing we want to do is protect our own kid.
Yeah,
right? And
sure.
I've already heard Felicia say, these things are going to happen. I know they will. So, I mean, we're already off to a good start in terms of what you're saying, right? Which is you got to talk to the other parent first.
Yeah, right. Well, you made me lose my train of thought.
Sorry
so why don't you just take it over, Dr. Stober?
Okay, so Daniil, what happened? What was going on from your perspective?
So I just heard Jake yell out and run over, and Kim motioned that it was
That's the teacher in the classroom.
The teacher. She motioned that I should come over because I noticed that she was trying to approach Kennedy, and whenever Kennedy is approached and hands come out to like physically like calm or touch, she's very on the defensive.
Sure.
Touch is very defensive for her, and so I kind of ran over there because I was more fearful that the next step was going to be she was going to lash out at teacher Kim. She was going to hit Kim because she was, you know, don't touch. And I think I took her into the bathroom because she was starting to get worked up. And then when we came out to go apologize to Jake, that's when I noticed it was a little bit more serious than just a tug of war or whatever.
So how did it play out? Like what happened then?
Well, I hang in this balance when things like this happen of forcing your kid to apologize for something that they don't understand what that even means.
Because it makes you feel better that Felicia has seen that you do not condone what your daughter just did.
Exactly.
Right.
And with Kennedy, you can't force her. I can't force or bribe her to do anything ever. It's never once worked.
Right. Kennedy and every other 3-year-old in the universe.
Who doesn't want to do
Right.
it.
Right. Yeah. And so I think she went over and kind of walked up to Jake and just kind of observed him for a few seconds. By then he'd calmed down a little bit. And then I continued to try to like work with her to say something or pat him on the shoulder or something, and it just didn't.
But she was curious about him.
She was curious. She went over there and was like,
what's happening.
Yeah, I was trying to explain to her that he was sad, and she made him sad.
And was Jake willing to look at Kennedy again?
No.
Or he was done with the whole thing? He's done with women. He is done with women. So, and Erin, did you see it also?
Yeah.
And do you want to add anything?
No, I think that was exactly what I witnessed too, is that I think Kennedy was willing to go back to Jake and made that effort. And I think at that point, Jake was at that place where all of our kids could get where you're just so upset that you do not want.
I just want mom.
I just want mom. I don't want to deal with. I don't want to talk to anybody else.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Dr. Stober.
Picture, right? This is things that 3-year-olds bump into all the time. Yes. Right? They're going to disagree, they're going to fight, they're going to work it out, they're going to get physical. And so one of the questions, as we were kind of talking about, this story to begin with is, does an adult need to do anything?
Right. I actually have a degree in ethnomusicology, but I was going to say the exact same thing.
Sure.
Because I learned that in my Music of the Pit and Mountains of Bulgaria class, that what was described to us probably would have pretty much been the same without anybody saying anything. But what we know as parents is it is really hard not to say anything because we feel like a lesson needs to be taught or something needs to be mended. And I think it's really important with 3-year-olds to remember that they're not really going to have a teachable moment in that, especially none of us do when we're on fire. That's not the time that we want to learn something. So as parents, it's really helpful to maybe sometimes you give your child this look. It's like, this look says to Jake, I see you're really hurt. And this look says to Kennedy, you are in big trouble. But not really. It's basically what you want your look to say is, I see something big is going on. Like that's your neutral look is, wow, I see something big is going on. And then now that kids are 3 going on 4, sometimes it's helpful to not say anything and just be there, look, because what you'll find is your kid will say something. We rush in always with, here's what we want to say on lecture 43B on hitting people or getting hurt. But they're not listening, they're on fire. And it's so much, it's so hard to remember that by the time they're 3 going on 4, we don't know what they're feeling about it. And so we just look, to be able to just look at them and say, whoa, that was something big. I think because there was a welt, we also sometimes like to go to the, what are you going to do, rather than just say sorry, which is why we always keep ice in the classroom and a little icy sponge. So there's a act of contrition that you can do. So if you don't know what to say to the perp, if your child, it's okay if I'm calling your daughter a perp. We'll check in 15 years. It's that way you could say to your kid who's the perp, let's go get some ice and we'll bring it over to Jake. That way there's not a lot to argue with. If you say to a kid, say you're sorry, you can't force it, but you can take them over to the refrigerator and get the ice.
So you can do nothing, right?
Yeah.
You can just watch and see what happens. You can intervene and give them something behavioral to do, right? Let's go get the ice pack, right? We're going to show a little bit of compassion. And if those 2 things aren't working, you can model what you'd like them to do, right? You can go over and say, I'm going to go over and check on Jake. I'm going to make sure that he's okay and get down on his level and just say, Jake, how are you doing? You're still modeling for your child what you want them to see without bribing them or making them apologize or anything else that's kind of short-sighted that doesn't really meet the need either of Jake in that moment.
This segues into another question because we happen to have this morning Kennedy, who was recently diagnosed with mild autism, and then also Aaron, whose son has a medical situation, which segues us into when you also know that your kid, like the Kennedy might have special challenges in what to do when she's emotional, or as you said, someone coming at her, that at what point do we know to what standards to hold our child? If there's something about our kid that we're worried about, like Aaron, you've shared with us that because you have to put Cooper through something every morning with giving him an injection, it's really hard to be a hard-ass mom 10 minutes later when he does something that if you didn't have to have given him an injection, maybe you would have like, I don't care, go cry. But I think that all of us struggle with what are reasonable expectations for a 3-year-old. But when you bring into that, well, I know my kid has this. How do you know what to do? And so for that, I've invited Dr. Amy Stober this morning today to tell us, because I have no idea.
Well, one thing I think that's important, right, is things that Ann and I say commonly, right? Parent the child you have, not the child you want, right? What's in front of you right now? What situation's going on that you're parenting at that moment? And then the other thing is, you know, this perfect example with Jake and Kennedy, thank you. Jake doesn't know that there's any other context other than the fact that he just got hit in the head with a truck. Right. So we still have to take care of that no matter what the subcontext is.
Exactly.
Right. And I talk to people a lot about there's what's happening and then there's the subcontext, all the things we think and we worry about and we fear and right. And really I want you to respond to what's happening. Right? And decide, you know, what's my goal here as a parent? Ann uses the phrase that I love, go to the end.
Go to the end of the fight first in your head. So before you open your mouth to your kid, say, am I going to give in anyway? Or am I going to say no anyway? And don't spend 20 minutes arguing to get there.
Which I think is perfect, right? When it goes to this behavioral issue, right? Like what you're talking about, Aaron, and you can say more, you know, that, about what the fight feels like or why you feel like you give in. But I think there's this piece, right, where you have to decide, well, am I going to give in anyway? Or am I going to really stand firm here? And I think that one of the general questions is, when do we know which to do, right? Okay.
I think that one question we can keep in our minds is, if somebody else's child did this, if I was observing someone else's child doing this to another child or to their parent, what would my feelings be? Would my feelings be, there's probably a backstory to that child, and I bet there was a reason, or would it be like, that child is obnoxious? And I think that sometimes, someone gave an example a while ago of her 3-year-old got very frustrated with her, and she was holding a cookie, and the kid knocked the cookie out of her hand and then hit her, which is a very 3-year-old thing to do. I've run out of strategies, so now I'm going to hit you. And it was so interesting because the mom said, I didn't know what to do. And I thought, that's one of the problems with raising a 3-year-old. You are so stuck in isolation that you actually don't know what to do about somebody hitting you in the face. Whereas, what would you do if anybody hit you? If I knocked Amy in the face, you're not going to think, God, I wonder what Ann's morning was like.
And that's
that she had to do that.
We do to ourselves, right? We think, oh, they're tired. They didn't get enough sleep last night. I misunderstood them. They really wanted the Oreo cookie, and they're just upset with me. No, a child just struck you. Is it okay? And I think it goes back to, what is your family culture? Right? What is it that you want your child to learn, really? What is our culture around hitting? Do we hit? If we don't hit, then we say, we don't hit. Right? And we address that right away, whether there's any special circumstances going on, because that's the lesson we want them to get from it. That's our goal.
And that is really hard when it's your own kid, because everything floods in that moment. So Aaron, talk to us a little bit about how you struggle in those moments when you have to really draw the line with Cooper, but you also remember what happened that morning, that it was so hard to get him to take his injection. What does that bring up in you?
Well, first of all, I want to say that I really like this idea of looking at your kid a little bit more objectively and saying, if this was just a random kid that I met on a playground and they did X behavior, how would I feel about that and how would I handle that? Because it's true, I get so caught up in, did Cooper spend all day yesterday at Dornbecker Children's Hospital getting an infusion and now he doesn't feel well because the medication has side effects? Or did he have a bad morning where he didn't want to take his medicine and it's a shot? And so, giving your child a shot every day, you have a little bit
against his will.
Against his will is a little bit traumatic for you as a parent. And so there's a lot of baggage that comes with that. And so, and Ann and I have had many conversations about, you know, how is it possible for me to step back from that emotion a little bit and still give Cooper what he needs?
I think we confuse, Erin, explanation with excuse. Right?
Yeah.
Explanation is what you want Cooper to understand later, right? You know, like, gosh, I think that the reason we were so grumpy with each other this morning was because you were so tired from being at the hospital yesterday.
Right.
It's not okay, though, to hit me when we're trying to get out the door or to X, Y, or Z.
Right.
That's not okay in our family. We're going to have to figure out a different way to deal with that. But I get why.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
I promised my husband that I would never talk about our marriage on the air. So I have a story about a friend's marriage. And this husband of my friend was a real a-hole when he came home from work, and he spoke to his wife in a really, really grumpy way when all she said was something
Really lovely and
she's
kind
fabulous.
and
You would
loving.
love her.
Right.
You should do a show with her. You would love her. So when my friend pointed out to her husband, you're an a-hole, and why are you talking to me that way? His answer was, you know, I just have a lot on my mind. And I thought of that when we're talking about this, which is that an excuse? That is,
That's an
you know who I'm
explanation.
talking about, you. Actually, he doesn't, because he doesn't watch the show. He actually didn't even know where I was going today. He said, why are you dressed up? Why are you wearing makeup?
So it's an explanation. It's not an excuse for the behavior.
Right, and it was so frustrating, and yet I remember in raising kids and with our kids, we sometimes say, they had a hard morning, they had a lot, and if we looked at them objectively, it was like, that doesn't excuse even a 3-year-old, much less a 50-year-old.
Right. It helps them understand, right? And that's our job, to help them understand and show them compassion and problem solve through it, but it does not excuse the behavior, and I think we do a lot of that for our kids.
So there were some other questions that you guys said you wanted to talk about. I think let's go to this idea of, Erin, that you were talking about with, and we have all discussed this idea of how do you foster independence in a 3-year-old? And especially when they now have the verbal ability to say, but you're not doing anything else. Why aren't you going to play with the Legos with me? Like, and you say, I can't. And you know, you can say I can't to a 2-year-old and they'll have a tantrum because they're pissed off. You say I can't to a 3-year-old, a 3.5-year-old, and it's like, prove it.
Let's talk
because,
about this.
you know, to me, the house looks pretty clean, the laundry's done, I don't know why you're not playing with me. And one of the examples that I think that you had said was when Cooper's carrying something and it's too heavy, his independence and problem solving is, Mommy, you carry it.
Yes.
Which, if we're going to defend him, is one of the solutions to a problem.
Yes.
So what do you usually say to him when that happens?
Well, I try and talk to him about, because typically there's lots of things that we're trying to carry, because Cooper tends to have, like, I would like to take this downstairs, and I would like to take that downstairs. Oh, and I also would like this blanket, and then this stuffed animal. So it becomes this large pile. And so I usually try to say to him, honey, I can't carry you and all of the things. So here's the stuffed animal. This doesn't weigh very much. I'll take everything else. So there's problem solving, there's negotiation going on, and that works some of the time. But being a typical 3-year-old, the other part of the time is, no, I want you to carry everything. And why can't, and even, it's like you say, you can't reason with a toddler, and I find myself reasoning because he is right on that edge of some days he will accept the reasoning, and other days it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if the house is on fire.
But let's go back to this question we asked before, which is, what's your goal for Cooper? In that moment, what do you want him to learn?
I want him to learn that he can be responsible for his wants and needs within reason. So, you know, if he wants the stuffed animal to come downstairs, then he can carry the stuffed animal downstairs. And I'm certainly not asking him to carry something that's too heavy for him. And I find a lot of that sort of behavior of, I would rather you do it, Mommy, just because I would rather you do it. And it also bleeds into play. So I think that he struggles with playing independently. So he wants to play, but he wants me to choose the cars that go down the
right.
racetrack and which slot on the racetrack the cars go on. And I have to pick the colors and I have to say ready, set, go. And these are all things that he's perfectly capable of doing.
You know what I love? I don't know if you guys are hearing this. What I'm hearing, Aaron's like, I have to, and I have to. It's like, well, actually you don't.
No.
But we get so, because that's what he wants. What happens
I'm
is.
sorry, I should say in his mind I have to.
Right, no, I like the way you said it because it's true.
And
We
I
all
think
do
a lot
that.
of moms feel that way.
We all.
Right? I have to.
Well, and I think that happens when kids start talking. When it's like, but I have a new idea. Like the first time your kid will say to you, but I have a different idea. And you're going, oh man, this is like the worst possible thing they're thinking for themselves. And I think that what Aaron is describing, we all feel, which is, it's hard to kind of go right back to that beginning, which is what I really want Cooper to hear, or what I really want Kennedy or Jake to hear is, you can go down the stairs carrying as much as your body can carry.
Yes.
And so you can look at everything. I can help you put it in your arms, but it's your job to carry your stuff alone. What's so interesting is how we forget that that's true. Because raising kids, we just kind of give them to their need, we give them this, and all of a sudden, they're 12 and we're still carrying their stuff, and we don't know how that happened. And so it's really waking ourselves up when a kid says, carry this for me, or play with me, or do this for me, instead of, well, I can't, and blah, 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 blah. It's really, the answer is very simple. That's your job.
Well,
That's
if we
your
want
job.
to foster independence, there's this great story, and I can't remember where I read it. Usually it's you that makes up the stories, but I really did.
No, I make up studies. There was a study from Brown University that talked about a psychologist who had a story.
And the story went that this family decided that, skiing to them was important. They all went skiing. They all went up to the mountain every Saturday.
It's from Satellite Sisters.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
Didn't need to add that.
It's a great story, right? Which is, you didn't get to go skiing until you could carry your own skis. Once you could carry your skis to the lodge and back, to the mountain and back, right, to the lift, you could go skiing. And so it was a really big deal to become old enough in this family to be able to carry your own skis. And I really think that goes to the goal of fostering independence, right? Like Cooper, if you want to be involved in this, right, or if you want to be able to do X, Y, or Z, you got to be able to do some of it on your own. And if we're fostering that independence by saying, this is the skill set you need for this, guess what we've done? We've just set a precedent in our family about what the culture is about independence, right?
Right. And, there's, the story, by the way, is from the Satellite Sisters radio show, and the story's called Carry Your Own Skis.
It's great.
I think one thing that I learn every time I remember that story is it's up to the parent to wake themselves up to say it. Because most kids are not going to all of a sudden say, I think I can do this myself. Right. Well, they will say that about stuff you don't want them to do. But, it's really our job as parents to say, what is it that I want my kid to grow up to be? It also makes it difficult with 3-year-olds because sometimes we do have to come up with the answer. Like Felicia, what's the example that you were saying yesterday with the doors?
Yeah, we have these sliding kind of barn doors on our closets, and they roll, and you can get your fingers stuck, and we have gotten fingers stuck, and you can get stuck inside the closet and can't get out, and this has all happened many times. And yesterday, Jake was in our pantry starting to roll the door, and I said, no, stop. And he just looked at me and, kept pushing. And so I put my foot there, and he looked at me and kept pushing. And I said, no, I said, stop. This is not safe for you. Blah, blah, blah. We've talked about this before,
right.
And finally, I just picked Jake up and took him into the living room and sat him down on the sofa and said, I said, you need to stop that. It's no. And then I came in and asked you about it because I thought, is there a better way? Because it just was this battle of wills. And
can I say what I think usually happens?
Yes.
I think usually people are not as direct as you are. And they do what's called an armchair approach to parenting, right? Where they say, don't stop, and they walk away and they start doing the dishes because they're busy. And then they look and the kid's still doing it and they say, don't stop. And they get more upset, right? But basically what the child is learning is mom's not really serious, right? And then either the door's opened or not.
Yeah.
But I have to say, I think you did a great job, right? By saying, this is no, right? This is a boundary.
That's a clear no
here,
for
right?
us,
This is a clear no.
That's funny because I said she did it wrong.
Oh, okay, well, great.
Well, not wrong so much as I tweaked it a little bit.
One of us has a different degree. Go ahead.
But which one of us? has clients.
Right. You are here.
You are here
right?
today. No, I don't disagree with that at all. I was moving into another idea of problem solving, which is take the power struggle out of it. Because I think what Felicia had said in class was that effective? Like, I said no, and he didn't listen.
Right.
And on a good day, when we're going to say, how do I really step back and look at this in a big, what am I fostering way? You sit down with Jake and you say, we have a problem. You are not making good choices when it's your decision to be alone in this room of how to deal with these closets. And I understand at 3, it's hard to make safe decisions all the time. Therefore, and then we fill in the blank. This isn't instead of what you said, so I really don't disagree with you.
Sure.
That it's, once we've, because no is going to come out of our mouths no matter what. You know, none of us, when a kid is about to pull a barn door off, is going to say, how do I foster independence? And, you know, let's sit down and talk about this. So first you're going to yell no, and you don't yell bad words, but I would. But then after you're on the couch and he's pissed off and you've worked it through, you say, so we got to make a plan. Because for you being alone in the room with the closets, you are not making safe decisions. What do we do then? Then you've got your kid in on problem solving. And that's really the genesis of problem solving is we're going to own it together for it. And it's not going to be because I said so, you better stop. It's also acknowledging it's hard not to do it. I think what I said yesterday was, we all understand how exciting those must be to Jake. I mean, barn doors with
that's
wheels.
pretty fun.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
a very cool thing.
There's a party in a box. And so after we've said no and really clearly, then it's, so what are we going to do about it? Because the answer can't be, I'm going to watch you all the time and always say no.
Right.
I mean, it can be, and we mostly fall into that, but it's exhausting.
And the only thing I would add to that, Anne, is, you know, you've said no, he's sitting down on the couch, he's ticked, right? I would wait to have that conversation until they're not quite as upset and just let them be upset for a while. And I know that's what you meant, but for parents that are watching, you know, they know that, like, they're like, I'm not going to talk to my kid about making a plan in the future when they're sitting on the couch pissed, and we don't infer that, right?
We call it never talk to the perp when the perp is on fire.
Just wait, but that is the conversation to have later, which is we have to be part of making a solution to this that works a little bit better in the future so that I can trust that you'll be safe around the doors.
I think it's also sanity for parents because if most everything is dependent on you catching your kid doing it wrong and saying no, that's not a fun day, and it's not a fun week, and it's not a fun year.
Let me ask a question to all of you kind of related to this. How does it feel to say no?
I have no problem with it.
No problem. Danielle has no problem with no. How does your daughter feel about that?
Well, here's the thing, too, because I remember my sister-in-law, before we had kids.
Sister-in-law.
She, my niece, and I can't remember how the conversation up, but she was kind of like, well, we try not to say no, like abundantly. And I remember thinking, don't throw your kid no. But like since then, I've thought a lot about it, and that seems to be something that is so easy to say so often. No. And so I have no problem saying it, but it's so repetitive. And is it effective? And I'm not really giving her the other, what's the word I'm looking for? Like another solution or option. Just no. You know?
So you say you have no problem, but you're not quite sure it's always effective. What about you, Erin?
This is perfect. We have the two of them because this is really the flip side of you're able to say no, and it doesn't hurt you. You know that no is a really okay thing to say.
Right.
And Erin, who's just too sweet to have ever been a mother, it really hurts you. It hurts you though when you have to say no to Cooper and he gets upset. Or am I wrong?
No, I think you're right. I think it did. I think as he gets older,
it's getting easier.
I think that I agree with Danielle. It sounds crazy to say I'm going to be a parent that doesn't ever say no, but I think what the meaning behind that really is that is there another way to communicate that this isn't
right? It doesn't mean I have no boundaries for my kids.
More effective. Something more effective.
Something more effective. So I definitely don't feel as bad saying no. When we were going through all of the medical stuff, we had a year where it just felt like there was one trauma after another. And it was really fragile for a while about where Cooper was going to be and how, you know, what his life was going to look like. Was he going to have a normal lifespan? There were a lot of scary things thrown at us in a very short period of time. And during that time, I certainly felt horrible saying no because there's all this guilt about I want him to have the best
I want every day to be the best.
And-
Right.
Yeah. Now that we're over that, knock on wood, it's and he's becoming a person. I feel better about saying no, and here's why. I think that's the tricky thing about having a 3.5-year-old is that then they start to question, and I'm getting a lot of
Right.
why. Why?
I think we should do a segment on why the next time
We should
because
just interview 3-year-olds.
of what
Yeah, exactly.
we do have to wrap it up. So we're going to be a cliffhanger and how you feel about saying no. We want to thank you guys. It means so much to us that you will come and talk about your kids and talk about your lives, and we hope that you'll come back. We want to thank all of you guys for watching. Please visit us on our Facebook page, which is the MotherLoad, Not Your Mother's Parenting Advice. We
want to thank our sponsors, the Pioneer Pediatrics. Thank you so much, Pioneer Pediatrics, and the Merrillhurst School. And as you can see, Danielle in front of her is sporting a cup with no sponsor. If you would
your
like to
name
be
here,
the
if you would
sponsor.
like to sponsor us.
And if you have future questions, you can put those on our Facebook
Yeah,
page as
please
well.
give
We'd
us
love to hear
questions
from
for
you.
future reference. And remember, don't parent like my co-host.
The MotherLoad has been brought to you today by the following sponsors: